Hello, welcome to HITC Sport. Right, the transfer window was slammed shut. Everyone happy with their business? No? Well, tough then. You're stuck with Danny Welbeck, alright? I'm going to take a look at every Premier League club's biggest signing of the window and just see where they were 5 years ago. Right, let's go. Arsenal, Thomas Partey, Atletico Madrid. Okay, Arsenal fans are salivating over the prospect of Thomas Partey from Atletico Madrid. He's a £40 million acquisition. They even chucked Lucas Ferreira out on loan, so I guess he wasn't the answer to your prayers then. More like the Uruguayan Francis Coquelin. Anyway, 5 years ago, Jamie Vardy was the one having a party, so were Atletico Madrid, promoting this 23-year-old Ghanaian powerhouse from the B team, making his senior debut in a 1-0 win over Espanyol in November 2015. He even wound up ending the season playing in a Champions League final. Arsenal scouts, though, at their time, were too busy having tugs in the shower to the idea of signing Granit Xhaka for £35 million. Good Christ. Aston Villa, Ollie Watkins, Exeter. Okay, lads, 5 years ago, Jamie Vardy was an inspiration for about 3 million footballers in England. A former non-league player, here he was scoring 24 goals as Leicester won the Premier League. You're damn right Ollie Watkins probably had posters of this man on his wall. The guy was just a 19-year-old kid and scoring just 8 goals in 20 games for Exeter, who are stuffed 14th in League 2. Tell him that within half a decade he'd be scoring a Premier League hat-trick as the champions of England in a 7-2 win, being employed by a club with the European Cup in their locker, he'd probably laugh in your face. Christ, back in 2015, he was playing up front alongside a fat Clinton Morrison. Tell him he'd soon be in a team with Ross Barkley, Jack Grealish and Bertrand Traore, he'd probably be ringing the police and escorting him off his property, and considering he was a footballer for Exeter, that property was probably a box on the side of the road. Brighton, Danny Welbeck, Arsenal. Okay, yes, Adam Lallana was quite a big name dragged in on a free transfer this summer, but I feel like I haven't shut up about this guy for months. Brighton fans are probably sick of me comparing him to a dead houseplant, so instead step forward Danny Welbeck, the original Marcus Rashford at Old Trafford, who now at 29 is having to beg Brighton and Hove Albion for a job. Christ, well, this guy's injury record is so bad, he's probably in danger of pulling a hamstring in the shower. Even pouring a bowl of cereal, he'd probably break a hip. Anyway, 5 years ago, he was, surprise, injured, stuffed in the Arsenal treatment room with a knee injury, impotently watching as his teammates failed to keep up with Danny Simpson at the top of the league. Burnley, Dale Stephens, Brighton. Okay, I'm sorry, but if your big marquee signing of the entire transfer window is Dale Stephens from Brighton's bench, then you can't complain when you find yourself stuffed at the foot of the league. Anyway, Stephens, a guy who will probably have the word bang average written on his tombstone. 5 years ago, he was 26, into his second full season at Brighton, playing 45 times, scoring 7 goals as they finished third in the championship before bottling the playoffs against Sheffield Wednesday. Chelsea, Kai Havertz, Bayer Leverkusen. Okay, well I could mention Timo Werner, who was scoring 6 goals in 33 games as Stuttgart were relegated from the Bundesliga, forecasting him to one day wind up at Stamford Bridge after that. Oh, just no. Ben Chilwell was a teenage left back stuffed in the Leicester reserves and only playing the cup games under Claudio Ranieri, while his teammates somehow won the league. But Kai Havertz, the £70 million shiny playmaker, Germany's next Mesut Ozil apparently, 5 years ago he was 16, scoring 18 goals for Bayer Leverkusen's under-17 team, won the under-17 Bundesliga title, and awarded the Fritz Walter Medal. Crystal Palace, EBERECHIEZE Millwall. Alright, the big marquee signing for Crystal Palace this season was EBERECHIEZE, an exciting £60 million playmaker from QPR. Well lads, 4 years ago, at the time of this channel's inception, he was actually working down his local Tesco. I'm not even joking. He was also studying part-time in college and begging QPR for a trial, and now he's a multi-millionaire. It's like the rise of Will&E, developing from a square-headed Geordie couch potato who lived with his dog and spent his afternoons bullying children on the internet, into a square-headed rich Londoner who subscribes to Football Daily. Anyway, the year before, the full 5 years ago, Etsy was getting released by Millwall as a 17-year-old kid. And Millwall, who just lost the League One playoff final to Barnsley and were employing a nearly 40-year-old Carlos Edwards on the wing. Why did they let him go? Were the coaches blind? It's like a homeless man turning down the offer of a couch. Everton, James Rodriguez, Real Madrid. Imagine going back 5 years ago and tipping James Rodriguez to sign for Everton. This is a club who struggled to convince Ross Barkley to stay. So getting their paws on Rodriguez, one of football's biggest stars, just what? Anyway, yes, half a decade ago he was 24, into a second full season at Real Madrid after scoring 17 goals in his debut season. Who would have predicted this? Fulham, Ademola Lookman, Charlton. Okay, you might think Anthony Knockout was the big marquee signing, an expensive £10 million move from Brighton in July, but then he was immediately loaned out to Nottingham Forest within 3 months. I'd understand if he was a kid leading games, but he's 28. Just what? Did he run over Scott Parker's dog? Anyway, I'd say the big signing for Fulham this summer has been Ademola Lookman, an exciting 22-year-old wing talent plucked off RB Leipzig's bench on a season-long loan. Anyway, 5 years ago he was 17, ripping up the Charlton underage teams before making his first team debut in November 2015. He's even scoring his first goals for the senior team against Brighton and Bolton before the year was out. Christ, he was on the same Charlton team as Ezri Konsa, Nick Pope and Yaya Sanogo, Gus Poyet's son, and that fat Glaswegian who peaked with the winner against Barcelona in 2012. What a bizarre dressing room. Leeds, Rodrigo Valencia. Yeah, big £30 million Rodrigo, a 29-year-old striker who's already given away a match-losing penalty against Liverpool and also scored the equaliser against Man City. He's had an eventful few weeks. Anyway, this former Bolton misfit, a guy who was Daniel Sturridge's backup at the Reebok Stadium, 5 years ago he was no doubt pulling his hair out, scoring just 2 goals a season for our Valencia teams, being coached by an MNF pundit, getting smashed 7-0 by Barcelona, wound up in a relegation scrap. Just a god-awful year for Rodrigo and Valencia as a whole. Leicester, Wesley Fofana sat at the end. I suppose Wesley Fofana was the big £30 million signing for Brendan Rodgers this year. Anyway, 5 years ago Fofana was just 14 years old, and if it was anything like my adolescence, he was probably rejecting phone calls from the local parish priest. But no, seriously, just like Will Smith, Fofana was moving on from Bel Air to progress his career. He was snapped up by San Etienne scouts that year, and the rest is history. Liverpool, Diogo, JOTA, Pacos, Ferreira. Okay, yes, Thiago Alcantara is Liverpool's best signing of the summer, but not the big blockbuster one. £45 million Diogo Jota, dragged in from Wolves, is Liverpool's 4th most expensive footballer of all time. And 5 years ago, he was 18, becoming the youngest player in the history of Pacos de Ferreira to score for them in the Premier League. He was the breakout young star for that club as they finished 9th in the league. But that was the same summer Raheem Sterling was being sold by Liverpool for 50 million quid. I don't think a teenage Jota living in the Portuguese suburbs ever imagined that he'd wind up at the same club for the same fee. No chance. Man City, Ruben Dias, Benfica. Yeah, £65 million Portuguese centre-back is supposed to be the answer to Man City's prayers, right? Well, 5 years ago, he was another 18-year-old kid playing for the Benfica B team. He was so good, he got promoted to the bench for a Champions League round of 16 second leg against Zenit St. Petersburg after 3 of the 4 main centre-backs were unable to make the trip. For a kid who'd never played a single minute of senior football in his entire life, he probably sat frozen with fear, shaking on an ice-cold bench at the backers of Russia on that gloomy Wednesday night, and quietly praying that Lindelof remained on the goddamn pitch. Christ, if he'd been brought on for his debut in those conditions, he'd probably have gone to the toilet in his pants. Man United, Donny van de Beek, Ajax. Why did Man United spend £40 million on Donny van de Beek only to let him rot on the bench? Bizarre. Anyway, go back to 2015 and this Dutch midfielder was again 18 years old. He just won Ajax Talent of the Future award and was making his European debut in a 2-1 Europa League win at Celtic Park. Most unknown teenage midfielders might have crumbled in that atmosphere, but he held his own, probably helped by the fact Scott Brown wasn't on the pitch. Because for a young teenager looking to impress, then a midfield battle with that seasoned monster, oh good Christ, you'd be lucky to keep your limbs intact. Even looking at him in the face would probably make you burst into tears. Newcastle, Callum Wilson, Bournemouth. Yeah, £20 million Callum Wilson was undoubtedly Newcastle's marquee signing of the summer. We all know where he was 5 years ago, stuffed in Bournemouth's treatment room. After ripping up the championship to get promoted, the 23-year-old has started Premier League life well, scoring a hat-trick at West Ham. And then the next month he smashes his right knee to pieces against Stoke, ruling him out for most of the season. He probably thought his Premier League dream was over after 5 games. Sheffield United, Aaron Ramsdale, Sheffield United. So where was £20 million Sheffield United #1 Aaron Ramsdale 5 years ago? Awkwardly, he was actually at Bramall Lane. At 18, he was an unused substitute put on the bench against Coventry and Scunthorpe that season before signing his first professional contract in May. But yeah, whoever's idea it was to sell him for £1 million only to buy him back for 20 times that amount 3 years later, I'm guessing they've since had their head flushed down the toilet. Southampton, Theo Walcott, Arsenal. Okay, who are we kidding? The return of Theo Walcott is Southampton's big signing of the summer. It's a bit like Gareth Bale's return to Tottenham, although probably not as exciting. Anyway, 5 years ago, Walcott was only 26 years of age and scoring 5 league goals in 28 games for Arsenal. This is a guy who was once tipped to succeed Thierry Henry. He was picked for World Cups at 16 years of age. So that's what a pitiful goal-scoring return in the title race cries out. Jamie Vardy, a guy who used to play for Halifax, was scoring 5 times that amount and winning the league. And I know Walcott was a winger, but still, Tottenham, Gareth Bale, Real Madrid. Yeah, 5 years ago, Gareth Bale was into his 3rd season at Real Madrid. He was about to win his 2nd Champions League, was coming up to 60 goals for the club, and still getting his car vandalised by the fans. West Brom, Grady Diangana, West Ham. Yeah, Grady Diangana trading West Ham for West Brom on a permanent basis. Mark Noble is probably still being talked down off a bridge. 5 years ago, this Congolese baller was, yes, stuffed in the West Ham Academy alongside Declan Rice, signing his first pro contract in May 2016. Raised for 10 years at West Ham, only to be sold like a cow on the black market. West Ham side Benrahma, Nice. Yeah, West Ham left delayed, but finally David Moyes has brought in a player to get the fans actually excited. Brentford have somehow been talked into letting the Hammers borrow side Benrahma. You know, the guy who was probably their best player, just a nonsense deal. Would you also let them borrow your wife? Good news for West Ham though, to get a guy who scored 17 goals last season for less than the price of a penny faloo. Anyway, in 2015 he was 20 years old, playing 10 games a season for Nice, clearly unable to get past Haddon Ben Arfa. And why would he? Ben Arfa is twice the player. Wolves, Fabio Silva, Benfica. Okay, £35 million Portuguese winger Fabio Silva was born in July 2002. He is a walking reminder of how long it's been since Ireland last played in a World Cup. That's what our almost 20-year wait looks like in human form. Great, he's nearly got a goddamn beard. Anyway, 5 years ago Silva was 13 and had just made the treacherous move of quitting Porto for Benfica, only to return with his tail between his legs 2 years later, hoping everyone would just forget he'd ever done that. Don't worry Silva, I remember, and no, I don't trust you. Anyway, that's the end of it. Let me know in the comments below. Enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and as always, I'll talk to you in a while.